Hello and welcome to the first of Hinduism GCSE Religious Studies. Today we are going to be looking at the nature of Brahman and the gods/goddesses. So in today's lesson, you're going to be able to explain what exactly Brahman is, describe a guna and saguna. You're going to be able to identify other deities and their characteristics, as well as being able to use quotes to be able to answer some exam questions. So before we get into today's lesson then, what I thought we would do is just have a quick rundown of some of the keywords that are going to be used in this lesson so you have an understanding of what they are when they come up. So feel free to pause the video here if you would like to take note of some of these keywords and their definitions. I will be moving on in 3, 2, and 1. So what exactly is Brahman? Now, Brahman is exactly something that human beings are capable of fully understanding. The idea of Brahman is that Brahman is this ultimate reality, this spiritual thing which is in everything that exists. So in order to exist, you are part of Brahman because Brahman is this sort of sense of reality. This means that Brahman also has to be eternal and infinite, meaning that never started, never finished, is always going to keep on going. Now, I can't use any pronouns when describing Brahman on the basis that Brahman is not physical. Brahman doesn't have any physicality at all, or at least in some forms of Brahman anyway. We'll come on to that right now. So looking at these quotes, Brahman is the highest, the hidden, the supreme. From the Upanishad, these are the things that make up the Vedas. So these texts are just as vital as the Rig Vedas or the Bhagavad Gita. You could use any of these quotations really to help you in any exam question. All this is Brahman, again, sort of showing that everything around, everything that exists is part of Brahman. And then again, this idea that he's both physical and not. He moves and he moves not. He is far and yet he is also near. This idea that Brahman is everything and everywhere just goes to show that Brahman isn't exactly the easiest thing to understand. Now, we've mentioned this idea that Brahman is both physical and not physical. And this is where Nirguna and Saguna come in. Now, Nirguna means that Brahman without form, beyond description or qualities. So this is the spiritual entity of Brahman, the ultimate reality, as we said before. This idea that Brahman exists in all things and therefore can't necessarily be touched, just like you can't touch the air around you. Brahman does have physical qualities and a form. Now, this is something that is expressed in multiple different ways to help human beings to relate to Brahman. This is where we start to see the existence of other gods start to come forward. This idea that Brahman expresses Brahman's self through different gods and goddesses. So there's a god for Brahman's creativity, a god for Brahman's destruction, a god for Brahman's preservation. All of this we will be coming on to in just a moment. Of Brahman being this god that is beyond all form and beyond material worlds is highlighted here in the Bhagavad Gita. This idea is the source of all spiritual things, so exists in every element of every spirit and is the source of all the material worlds, showing both that physical and that spiritual. But we do also see this idea again in the Bhagavad Gita that the formless Brahman is the highest goal. Now, if you are wanting to escape from the cycle of samsara, which we'll be talking about in an upcoming lesson, the goal of that is to try and reach moksha. Now, moksha is a place where you can reunite and come one with Brahman. So effectively, your physical vessel no longer continues, and the Brahman that is within you can reunite with the rest of Brahman, where you can rest for eternity. Now, if we were to be faced a 4-mark question, let's say in the AQA exam board for this particular question, this 4-mark explain 2 Hindu beliefs about Brahman. A really simple structure I would always recommend is using the wording of the question. So one Hindu belief about Brahman is, and then I would give my point. this means that. I would then explain what this means. So usually in this scenario, I will try and use either a keyword that I can define or a key belief that I can try and give some further development on. I would then repeat this. And another Hindu belief about Brahman is this means that. Now, the reason I do this is because it takes all the thinking out of the writing. A lot of people struggle with their timings because of the fact they don't know how to start their answer. If you use this particular method of using the wording of the question, this is going to help you speed up those answers. Now, a 4-mark question like this, you want to be answering realistically in 2 to 3, maybe 4 minutes if you're really pushing it. The reason you don't want to spend any longer on that is because you're then cutting away from the time for the bigger essay questions like those 12 or 15-mark questions. Bonus points to those who spotted already my typo in this, the lowercase h in Hindu. Absolutely, that should be a capital. That is completely my bad, but just goes to show that we are all human, especially in these exam conditions. Mistakes can be made. Now, here is an answer that I prepared earlier, and again, typo still in there. Apologies, but hopefully you can still get that same idea. This idea of I have used Naguna Brahman as the point, and then I've explained what that means in a definition. I've then given Saguna Brahman as a point. I've then explained what that means to give me that development. Two key beliefs of Naguna Brahman and Saguna Brahman, and then 2 explanations, 2 developments, 2 definitions I've used in this answer. Feel free to pause the video here if you would like to copy this answer down so you've got a model, perfect 4-mark answer. We will be moving on in 3, 2, and 1. So this does lead the question then. As we said earlier, Brahman can take on these other forms of some of the other gods as a way to sort of express Brahman's characteristics. So does this lead to the belief in one god or many? Now, the belief in one god would be this idea of monotheism. So if you are used to studying the Abrahamic faiths, that of Christianity, Islam, or Judaism, this idea of monotheism should be something new to you, this belief in one ultimate god. You then also have this idea of polytheism, this belief in multiple gods, which has a tendency to be where more people put the religion of Hinduism into this bracket. This could go into similar beliefs such as Greek mythology, Norse mythology, as well, having those existence of multiple gods, which do technically exist within Hinduism. However, this still is not an accurate statement. A more accurate statement would be this idea of henotheism, the belief in one god, but the acceptance of others. So in this case, then, it's the belief in one god, Brahman, and the acceptance of the other gods, the different characteristics, the different expressions or manifestations of Brahman in itself. So this idea then from the Rig Veda, this is one, sages call it by various names. Now the sages, according to sort of Hindu sort of history, are these people who come up with sort of prophecies, and they were seers. They could predict the future. They had prophecies that would come to them, and they would write these things out in either poems or hymns that would be sort of spoken and sung to people around to sort of spread that message of what it was they were trying to get people to believe in, this idea of there being one god, Brahman, and that Brahman having multiple different names, so to speak. We then also have this idea here of, they call them Indra, Mitra, Varuna, Agni. All of these are some of the different titles that the sages originally gave to the different names of Brahman, different gods that could exist within Hinduism. But we still get to this idea in the Bhagavad Gita that all paths lead to me. This idea that all the gods, regardless of their differences, all lead back to this one main being. Now, this is different from the likes of the Trinity in Christianity, on the basis that all of them claim to be one being, just represented in different ways. However, they are in themselves not separate. In Hinduism, it is this idea that they are separate beings and completely in their nature, in the way they are, in their interactions with the world. But they all lead back to this one being, Brahman. Now, Just a reminder, for those who are not 100% confident with Hinduism, it is important to remember that not all Hindus will believe the same thing. Hinduism was something that was made up from lots of different cultures within the Indus Valley civilization, that later on, it was actually Great Britain that sort of labelled it Hinduism, on the basis of, we labelled everything that seemed different, enough to be different from Christianity or any other religions that we understood at the time. We kind of put them under one umbrella term and called it Hinduism. So therefore there is a lot of diversity in belief. So you might have some Hindus who claim to be completely monotheistic. You might have some Hindus who believe that actually the multiple gods are separate in themselves of Brahman and therefore are polytheistic. You might also have some Hindus who are henotheistic as well. So just worth making a note of that, because sometimes we can make overgeneralizations for Hinduism. It's just important to know that it can be different, depending on which Hindu you speak to. Now, we come on to the Trimurti, and it is literally these three gods here: Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, three of the most famous gods in all of Hinduism. Now, Brahma is known as the creator, which we can see here from the quote of the Upanishads, this idea that he is the creator, came all beings. Vishnu then being this preserver being. Whenever there is a decline of righteousness, I manifest myself. So basically what this quotation here from the Bhagavad Gita is saying is that whenever there is something that is going wrong, Vishnu is there to go and fix it. So Vishnu preserves the existence of things by fixing issues when they start to go awry. And then finally, Shiva, this concept of being the destroyer, the auspicious one, this idea that Shiva will destroy things, but not necessarily for just no reason. The concept of Shiva's destruction actually leads Hindus to believe that this is for purpose, this is for the ability then for Brahma to create something. So it's that idea of you can't break eggs without, you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. You have to destroy things before you are able to then make something new again. So the Trimurti are a fundamental core belief of many Hindus, Vishnu being possibly the most popular god out of all of the gods in Hinduism. Brahma, surprisingly, actually coming in as one of the least followed gods in Hinduism. In fact, there are only 2 temples dedicated to Brahma globally. And the reason for this is because there were stories of Brahma not necessarily being the best kind of being. There were instances where there was a female in which Brahma tried to pursue, to which Vishnu and Shiva had to stop Brahma because Brahma wasn't exactly being very respectful in those moments. So Vishnu and Shiva had to sort of punish and restrain Brahma from continuing in his pursuits. This is part of the reason why then Brahma is one of the least followed of the Trimurti. Now, we do have other Deva or Devi, this idea of gods or goddesses. Now, Lakshmi is a Devi. She is part of the Tri-Devi, the consorts of the Trimurti, the 3 gods we looked at previously. Now, Lakshmi is the goddess of wealth, fortune, and prosperity. So during the idea of worship of this particular Devi, of Lakshmi, this is something that people will pray towards if they are needing support in their wealth. So if they are going through hard times and they are financially struggling, they may decide to worship Lakshmi in terms of hoping for good fortune and prosperity for the future. Now, this is often done during Diwali on the basis that Lakshmi is the consort of Vishnu. Now, Vishnu is one of the gods that does have different avatars. Now, one of the avatars of Vishnu is this idea of Rama. Now, Rama is the main character in the story of Diwali, which there will be a whole separate lesson on. So if you're not there yet, just keep an eye out for that lesson to pop up. This is why then Lakshmi is often sort of worshipped during this time, because obviously if she is the consort of Vishnu, they are fundamental parts of the story of Diwali. Here we see this idea of where Lakshmi dwells, there is prosperity and virtue, this idea that everything is made good and wealthy when Lakshmi is around. You then also have this god called Ganesh, who is the source of wisdom, success, and the remover of obstacles. Now, Ganesh is often recognized by his elephant head. Now, this was because Ganesh is actually the son of Shiva and Parvati, his Shiva's consort. Now, Parvati made Ganesh in order to protect her, and when Shiva came home, did not recognize that this was his son, so killed him almost in a sense and decapitated him. And when he realized that actually this was his son, they replaced this then with the head of an elephant, hence why Ganesh has this very recognizable elephant head. Now, many people will worship Ganesh during hard times, especially when there are obstacles that they need to overcome. So for you guys, if you were Hindus, you may worship Ganesh in times of your exams. These are very stressful times where you would want to be able to overcome those obstacles to ensure that you could have positive result at the end of it. And we see that again in that quote from the Upanishad. Finally, then, we also have the god Hanuman. Now, Hanuman is the monkey god symbolizing strength, devotion, and courage. Now, is also sometimes linked to this idea of being the god of the winds, was a key devotee of Rama. This again links to the story of Diwali that we were speaking about earlier. Now, Hanuman would be able to fill up his lungs and sort of leap across the sky with this wind. And this is something that helped Rama save his partner Sita from a 10-headed demon, which again, we will talk about when we get into that lesson on Diwali. What I would like you to do then is to have a go at doing this quick check. I have given you 3 key words that I would like you to give a description for and see if you could link a quotation to. So try and do this without looking at your notes. If you do need to look back, do feel free to have a look at the quotation, see which one links to which key word. I will be revealing the answers in 3, 2, and 1. So here are the answers then. So you've got Naguna Brahman, which is this idea of being a formless Brahman. And again, here we see the quote from Bhagavad Gita. You've got Saguna Brahman, which is the material Brahman, the source of all spiritual and material worlds. This idea that not only is Brahman spiritual, but there's also a physical being as well. And the Trimurti, where then the manifestations of Brahman, the different main parts of Brahman's characteristics, the idea of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. We've used just one quotation here that links to Brahma. If you'd used one for either Vishnu or Shiva, or that would have been absolutely fine as well. We finally then come on to this 12-mark question, and I have given you guys the quotations that I would personally use in this answer. Now, if I was going to be answering this question, I would personally suggest that worshipping Brahman with form is stronger than worshipping Brahman without form. It's really hard to engage with a being that you can't see or understand. So therefore, I would say a stronger argument would be worshipping Brahman with form. So that could be through the Trimurti, that could be through any of the other Deva or Devi. That doesn't have to just be the Trimurti. You could use the Tridevi of Lakshmi, Parvati, you could use Hanuman, you could use Ganesh, all different ways that you could argue in this particular question. Now, when it comes to the use of these quotations then, it's really important that you're not just throwing them in there, but you are developing what these quotations actually go on and say. This idea then that Brahma is the creator, for example, it's crucial to be able to understand creation and the fact that it must have come from somewhere. If you'd say that's come from a formless thing that we can't understand at all, you're not going to be able to get to grips with how the world got here or answer any of those big questions. So you need to be thinking almost philosophically when sort of dissecting some of these quotations. Now, what you'll notice here is that I have 3 for the disagree side and 2 for the agree side. Now, I am purposefully choosing to have a non-balanced argument. I want my disagree side to have more to it. This is because I'm suggesting it to be the strongest argument available. So with it being the stronger argument, there's going to be more things that I could say that line up with this particular side of the argument. So that's why I've got 3 quotations on this side. The weak argument, I'm going to have less to say about. That's why it's a weak argument. It's going to be hard to defend. So having less quotations, less evidence, less points on one side of the argument is perfectly fine. It does not need to be a balanced argument at all. So just to recap then, our main ideas throughout this lesson. Brahman is one main reality, but with many forms. So the idea that everything that exists, everything that is real, is Brahman, but also Brahman can take on many forms through the various different gods and goddesses. You've got the concept of Naguna Brahman and Saguna Brahman, which really highlight that same idea of you having a spiritual Brahman and a material Brahman. The fact that deities exist and they are avatars as expressions of Brahman's characteristics. They are different sort of personality, different characters of Brahman's personality. We have looked at some key quotations for evidence to be able to use in a big 12-mark answer, which we have been able to plan out in a sort of table format there for you. My recommendation is go away, have a go and try and answer that question yourself. My recommendation for 12-mark questions should be in the range of around 15 to 20 minutes. If you can get within that time frame, you're doing really, really well. Remember, use the wording of the question, try and keep the sentences really simple. If you need to, use the same sentence starters over and over and over again. You are not being marked based on your originality, but you are being marked on your availability to show knowledge. You want to be able to do that as quickly as possible under time pressure. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope you guys are going to look forward to the new upcoming Hinduism lessons. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one.